Welcome back. Joining me now is Democratic Congresswoman Debbie Dingell, who has warned fellow Democrats President Biden's blue wall could be in trouble. Congresswoman Dingell, welcome back to Meet the Press.
Christine, it's great to be with you.
It is great to have you here. We really appreciate it. I do want to start with what's happening in Michigan, but we'll get to that in a moment. Let's talk about the other big news on Capitol Hill. I was just talking about it with Senator Graham, which is the decision by House Republicans to open an impeachment inquiry into President Biden. Do you now see a full impeachment as inevitable?
No, I don't, because they've still got to get facts. So in order to have the House pass an impeachment, you got to have facts. And I've talked to numerous Republicans who have publicly and quietly said there's no there there. They can't find anything. There were a lot of arms broken. I've talked to those members whose arms were broken about even voting for this on the House floor. And I think it will be much harder to get the number they will require to have an impeachment if they don't find something. And they've been looking for something for a year and have not found it. If it had, it'd be headlines. And instead, the headlines are Republicans, not Democrats, Republican senators and House members saying there isn't anything there. We can't find it.
Let me ask you about something that did get some attention this week. President Biden has, of course, repeatedly said that he's never spoken to his son about his overseas business dealings. But Hunter Biden, who held a surprise news conference outside of the Capitol, had this to say this week.
Let me state as clearly as I can. My father was not financially involved in my business.
Now, the chairman of the House Judiciary Committee, Jim Jordan, seized on that moment. He said the language suggests that President Biden has been involved in his son's business dealings, but just not financially. What do you make of that? How do you respond to that?
Look, I've been very clear. I don't care if you're a Republican or Democrat, who you are, nobody's above the law. There have been constant investigations since Joe Biden was president and vice president. I think that he should have these hearings. They should be transparent and open, which is Hunter Biden said he would go. I think the Donald Trump court hearings should be open and transparent, because I don't want, excuse me, even people like you, Kristen, the media shouldn't be interpreting it. American people should see all of this straight up and see what's there and not's there, and not have all of us commenting.
Hunter Biden did defy a subpoena request. He said he would testify openly, but not privately. But do you think he should have defied that subpoena request? Should he have gone and testified?
I think he's got a right to say, I'll do this. Be transparent. Make it open. Because I think too many people are coming out of this and implying things that aren't true. And I think all of us have a right to know what the truth is.
Big picture, Congresswoman, are you comfortable with a politician's family member profiting off of their last name in any way?
Look, I had my own career my whole life. I was working before I ever married John Dingell. And I had to work 10 times harder than any other person I knew just to show I could do the job. So you got to be careful. We have to be open. We have to be transparent. You got to work hard, and you got to prove you can do the job. So, but if you've got a last name that people know, does that mean you can't work? So you got to be open and transparent. And I think that's the most important thing. And you got to deliver for those you're working for.
Let's talk about the negotiations over the supplemental. I just talked about them with Senator Lindsey Graham. Obviously, Republicans proposing some tough new measures at the border that would limit asylum, would limit parole, things that progressives say just are too extreme. Would you vote for legislation that included some of those tough new measures?
I'm not going to tell you what I'm going to vote for until I see exactly what's there. We have needed comprehensive immigration reform in this country for decades. And because it's so hard and it's so emotionally charged, we never get it done. We don't get it done under Republican presidents. We don't get it done under Democratic presidents. And I will remind people watching and my dear friend Lindsey Graham, 9/11 happened under George Bush. People came into this country. It is our national security is something that we need to worry about every single day. And I share Lindsey Graham's worry about our national security. I've had family members that have died from fentanyl. The president has been trying to get more more Custom and Border Patrol, more law enforcement orders. We need to do something on immigration, but we need to do it in a right way that keeps compassion there, but protects our national security. So let me see what comes out of this, and then I'll tell you what I'm going to vote on.
What is your response when he says that the border is broken under President Biden?
Border has been broken. It was broken under Donald Trump as well. Our immigration reform, we have needed comprehensive immigration reform for decades. Let me also say, you've got small businesses clamoring for people. We've got caregiving, which is in desperate shape, and we need to bring some of these people need to be immigrants, but we don't want illegals. We don't want other people coming in. We don't want drugs coming across our border. We need a balanced, comprehensive immigration policy.
Just very quickly, would you support whatever the White House agrees to if they strike a deal?
I don't ever say I'll support something categorically until I see what it is.
Okay, fair enough. This week I did have a chance to talk to some Michigan Democratic voters who supported President Biden in 2020. Now, 2 out of 5 of the voters I talked to say they're not so sure. They cite the economy as one of the reasons. They say, hey, we can see that inflation is coming down, but we don't feel that in our pocketbooks. What do you say to those Michigan voters? Why should they vote for President Biden when they say they're struggling still to buy groceries?
First of all, I know they're struggling because when I'm home and I'm out and about, I'm at the farmers markets, I'm in those grocery stores, I'm in the labor halls, and people are having a hard time. Now, gas prices are coming down, food prices are coming down, but we're going to have to do, there are a lot of things we're going to have to do. First of all, people know that Michigan's a purple state. I can't always convince people of that. This year, these polls are saying, hey, Debbie's right this time. I was right back in 2015 and 2016, too. But Donald Trump, we have to look at not words, but actions. When he was president, he gave the rich tax cuts and increased prices, too. So we've really got to talk about the economy, the jobs that have been created, the kind of investments that are going in, and show what's been done. We have to show and remind them of the actions, not the words.
One of the big issues for voters in Michigan is the issue of how President Biden is handling the war in the Middle East, with some calling to, quote, abandon Biden over his handling of the Israel-Hamas war. Of course, Michigan has one of the largest Muslim populations in the country. Is there anything President Biden can do to win back those voters?
So there's a lot that has to be done, and this is a very serious issue. I lived in Dearborn for 40 years with a man that I loved. I moved last year because of redistricting. I know this community. They are hurting. All of us in this country need to understand what's happening in Gaza right now. You can fight about how many thousands of people have been killed, but 6,000 to 8,000 children have been killed. 85% of the people in Gaza have had to leave their homes. They're living in shelters. Disease is going up. There's one toilet for 220 people, one shower for 4,500 people. They don't have food. They don't have medicine. They don't have utilities. And I can't tell you the number of families that I've spoken to who've lost entire families. Entire families. We got to show some empathy and compassion. A Jewish baby and a Palestinian baby are babies. I don't want to see any baby die. So first of all, we got to take that on. We got to get a ceasefire. This has to stop. And I agree with Lindsay, if anything good comes out of this crisis, we need everybody to come together and get a strong two-state solution.
Congresswoman Debbie Dingell, thank you so much for your time this morning. I really appreciate it. So good to be with you. Thank you.
Thanks for watching. Stay updated about breaking news and top stories on the NBC News app or follow us on social media.